Scary telling. I've been having the same dream for as long as I can remember. It's a perfect summer day, and I'm surrounded by my family and friends. We're all laughing and playing, and the sun is shining bright in the sky. But as the day goes on, things start to feel off. The people around me become distant and their faces start to warp and distort, like something out of a nightmare. The sky turns blood red, and the air becomes thick with the stench of decay. I realize that I'm trapped in this moment, unable to escape, as everything around me slowly falls apart. At first, I thought it was just a weird dream. But as the dream became more and more frequent, I started to get scared. It was like something was trying to tell me something, but I didn't know what. I couldn't shake the feeling that the dream was important, so I sought out a psychic. I was skeptical at first, but as soon as she started talking, I knew that she was the real deal. She told me that I had tapped into the submerged life described in the prompt, and that the perfect summer day was a glimpse of the afterlife. But in this afterlife, there was no escape from the burning sun, and the eternal summer would slowly consume me until there was nothing left. The psychic warned me that the dream was a curse, and that the only way to break it was to confront the darkness that lay beneath it. She told me that I needed to be careful, because the curse was strong and would try to pull me back into the dream. I left the psychic's office feeling more confused than ever. Was I really cursed? Was the dream really a glimpse of the afterlife? I didn't know what to think. As I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I kept turning around, but there was no one there. The shadows seemed to be moving around me, and I could hear whispers in the night. I tried to ignore it, but the fear was starting to consume me. The next night, I had the dream again. But this time, it was more vivid than ever. I could feel the heat of the sun on my skin, and the stench of decay was overpowering. I tried to wake up, but I couldn't. It was like I was trapped in the dream, unable to escape. The dream started to happen every night, and I couldn't sleep. I was becoming more and more frightened, and I knew that I needed to do something before it was too late. I went back to the psychic, and she confirmed that the curse was responsible for the strange occurrences in my waking life. She told me that the curse had been passed down through generations of my family, and that I needed to break it before it consumed me. I left the psychic's office feeling even more scared than before. I knew that I had to do something, but I didn't know what. The memory of the future was consuming me, and I didn't know how to stop it. The memory of the future continued to haunt me, and the strange occurrences in my waking life became more frequent. I would hear whispers in the night and see shadows moving around me when I least expected it. I was becoming more and more frightened, and I knew that I needed to find a way to break the curse before it was too late. I sought out the psychic again, desperate for answers. She told me that the curse was responsible for the strange occurrences in my waking life, and that it was trying to pull me back into the dream. She warned me that the curse was strong and that I needed to be careful. I was becoming more and more isolated, as I didn't want to burden my family and friends with my fears. I felt like I was alone in this, and that no one could help me. But I was determined to find a way to break the curse. I started doing research on my family's history, hoping to find some clue as to how to break the curse. I discovered that my ancestors had a long history of occult practices, and that some of them had even been accused of witchcraft. I didn't know what to make of it, but it was clear that my family had a dark past. I began to experience strange occurrences in my waking life, including seeing strange symbols and hearing strange voices. I knew that I was getting closer to the truth, but I was also becoming more and more frightened. One night, I woke up to find a strange figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was like something out of a nightmare, with long, twisted limbs and a face that seemed to warp and distort. I was frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. The figure reached out a hand and touched my forehead, and I felt a jolt of electricity run through my body. When I woke up the next morning, I knew that something had changed. The fear was still there, but it was different somehow. It was like the curse had become a part of me, and that I was starting to see things that others couldn't. I went back to the psychic, and she confirmed that the curse had become a part of me. She told me that I needed to be careful, as the curse would try to use me to bring others into the eternal summer. I felt like I was going crazy. The memory of the future was consuming me, and I didn't know how to stop it. But I was determined to find a way to break the curse, no matter what it took. I knew that I needed to confront the darkness that lay within my family's history if I was ever going to break the curse. I continued my research, delving deeper into my family's past and discovering the terrible things that had happened because of the curse. I learned that the curse had been brought on by a terrible act committed by one of my ancestors. It was said that he had made a deal with a demon, exchanging his soul for eternal life. But the demon had tricked him, cursing him to an eternal summer instead. And now, generations later, the curse continued to haunt my family. I knew that I needed to find a way to make amends for the past if I was ever going to break the curse. I started doing more research, hoping to find a way to break the curse and free myself from the memory of the future. One day, I stumbled upon an old book in my family's library. It was written by one of my ancestors, and it contained detailed instructions on how to break the curse. I couldn't believe my luck. I started reading the book, and I was shocked by what I found. The book described a ritual that would break the curse, but it was a dangerous ritual. It required the sacrifice of a living creature, and it had to be performed during the summer solstice. I was horrified by what I was reading, but I knew that I had no other choice. If I was ever going to break the curse, I had to go through with the ritual. I spent the next few weeks preparing for the ritual. I gathered all the materials I needed, including a living creature, and I waited for the summer solstice to arrive. On the day of the ritual, I felt like I was going to be sick. I was terrified, but I knew that I had to go through with it. I performed the ritual, sacrificing the living creature and completing the incantation. There was a moment of silence, and then I heard a loud cracking sound. The world around me seemed to warp and distort, and I felt like I was falling. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by darkness. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel a presence around me. And then, suddenly, I was back in my own body. I looked around, and I could see the sunlight filtering through the window. The world around me looked different somehow, like everything was clearer and more vivid. The memory of the future was still there, but it was fainter now. It was like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I knew that I had broken the curse, but I also knew that it would never truly be gone. The memory of the future would always be a part of me, a reminder of the darkness that lay within my family's history. But I was no longer afraid. I had faced the darkness head-on and had emerged victorious. And I knew that I would never forget the lessons I had learned. After breaking the curse, my life slowly started to return to normal. The strange occurrences in my waking life became less frequent, and I was finally able to sleep soundly again. But the memory of the future continued to haunt me, reminding me of the darkness that lay within my family's history. I started to focus on the present, trying to live my life to the fullest. I surrounded myself with friends and family, and I made sure to appreciate every moment. But there was always a nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like something was waiting to pull me back into the eternal summer. One day, I received a strange package in the mail. It was from an unknown sender, and it contained an old photograph. The photograph was of my ancestors, the ones who had started the curse all those years ago. But there was something off about the photograph. The people in it looked twisted and distorted, like something out of a nightmare. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I started to experience strange occurrences in my waking life again, like I was being watched. The memory of the future was becoming stronger, and I knew that I needed to do something before it was too late. I went back to the psychic, hoping that she could help me once again. She told me that the curse was not truly broken, and that something was trying to pull me back into the eternal summer. She warned me that I needed to be careful, as the curse was stronger than ever. I knew that I had to confront the darkness once again, so I started doing more research. I discovered that the photograph had been taken during the same summer that had been condensed into the single impression of the submerged life. It was like something was trying to tell me that the perfect summer day was not as perfect as it seemed. I realized that I needed to find a way to break the curse once and for all. I started doing more research, looking for any clue that would help me. And then, I stumbled upon an old diary written by one of my ancestors. The diary contained detailed instructions on how to reverse the curse, but it was dangerous. It required a sacrifice, but not of a living creature. It required the sacrifice of oneself. I was horrified by what I was reading, but I knew that I had no other choice. I made the decision to perform the ritual, knowing that it would mean the end of my life. I knew that it was a sacrifice that needed to be made so that the curse could be broken once and for all. On the day of the ritual, I felt like I was going to be sick. I was terrified, but I knew that I had to go through with it. I performed the ritual, and I felt a sudden jolt of electricity run through my body. When I woke up, I was surrounded by darkness. But this time, it was different. I could feel a sense of peace around me, like the darkness had been lifted. I knew that the curse had been broken once and for all. As I closed my eyes for the final time, I knew that I had made the right decision. The memory of the future would live on, but it would no longer haunt my family. And I knew that my sacrifice had been worth it, so that others would not have to suffer the same fate. In the aftermath of my sacrifice, my family and friends mourned my passing. But they also knew that I had made a sacrifice for the greater good. They knew that the curse had been broken once and for all, and that my sacrifice had ensured that the memory of the future would no longer haunt our family. In the years that followed, my family started to heal. The strange occurrences in our waking lives stopped, and we were finally able to live our lives without fear. But we never forgot the lessons that we had learned. We knew that there was darkness in our family's history, and that we needed to be vigilant to make sure that it never returned. As time passed, the memory of the future started to fade. It was like a weight had been lifted from our shoulders, and we were finally able to move on with our lives. But we never forgot the sacrifice that had been made to break the curse. And then, one day, I received a strange package in the mail. It was from an unknown sender, and it contained an old book. The book was written by one of my ancestors, and it contained detailed instructions on how to summon a demon. I knew that the darkness was still out there, waiting to pull us back into the eternal summer. But I also knew that we had the strength to fight it. We had learned from our past, and we were ready to face whatever the future held. As I closed the book, I knew that my sacrifice had not been in vain. The memory of the future may live on, but we would never forget the lessons that we had learned. We would always be ready to confront the darkness, no matter what form it may take. And we would always be grateful for the sacrifice that had broken the curse once and for all.